All right, in this video, we are going to learn how to graph a two-variable inequality like a line or a parabola when it is not an equation but an inequality. So let's start with an example. Let's do y is less than or equal to 1/2 x minus 3. And this is also a good reminder of our shortcuts for graphing lines. So let's start just by setting up maybe like a 5x5 4-quadrant graph. All right, so here's just a basic graph. I have x and y labeled. I've got at least one scale marker for each axis. And now I want to start by figuring out if this were a line instead of an inequality. So for example, y equals 1/2 x minus 3. Then like where would that line be? This is like the boundary line that separates the solution region from the non-solution region. So I'm going to start by putting a point at my y-intercept. 1, 2, 3. And then my slope is 1/2. So that means my delta y is 1 and my delta x is 2. So if I go up 1, they're both positive, so up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, and I can go backwards, back 2, down 1. Okay, now normally I would just automatically connect those points to make a line, right? I'd grab my ruler, connect the points, woohoo. However, I'm not going to do that right away. I'm going to look back at my inequality and I'm going to decide, should this be a solid line or should this be a dashed line? And since it's an or equal to, that means that all the points on the line are actual solutions. And so I'm going to draw a solid line through. If it had not been an or equal to, if it had just been a less than, then I would do a dashed line. Okay? So if it's like this or like this, we do a solid line. If it's like this or this, we do a dashed line. Okay? All right, now I know that I need all the points that are less than or equal to 1/2 x minus 3. So I think less than on this one would probably be like all this stuff down here. But just to double check, we can always check a point. And so I'm going to check a point that I think is in the solution region, like maybe, for example, 2 and then -5. 2, -5. Is that going to work? So I'll plug that in to my inequality. So that's my x, that's my y. So -5 is less than or equal to 1/2 of 2 minus 3. -5 is less than or 1/2 of 2 is 1 minus 3. So -5 is less than or equal to -2. Is that true? Yep, that's true. So since this point works, since I know I graphed my line correctly, that means that my solution region is down below. Now, if we were doing this on a computer, they would just very nicely and evenly shade in down below. That is absolutely an option that you can do. You can very nicely and evenly shade in. If you're not a very nice, neat person and you nicely and neatly shading will end up looking terrible, then the other option is for you to do like hatch marks. So kind of like what I did to start, where you just go and you kind of make them be like perpendicular to the line that you drew. All right, don't go back the other way though, because we're gonna save that for later. That's gonna be when we do a system of inequalities. All right, let's do another example. I suppose to make these notes complete, I should say this works, so shade that side. Since it works, I shade that side. If it didn't work, then I would know to shade the other side. All right, next let's do y is greater than 3x. Pause, see if you can graph it on your own. What is this one gonna look like? Try and do it by using your graphing shortcuts. All right, so there is no b value, right? If there was, it would be like a +0 at the end there. So that means that this one starts at 0, 0. And then its slope, m, is 3. So delta y over delta x is sort of like 3 over 1. So that means I'm going to go up 3 over 1, up 3 over 1, back 1, down 3. Always dot your line first and then decide whether to make it dashed or solid, because like dots don't mess it up either way, right? So now I take a look at this. Should this be solid or should this be dashed? Dashed. So you're going to do a dashed line through the points. Rulers really help with that. Dashed line. And then this says y is greater than 3x. Which side is greater? It's more like left or right. How do I know which side is greater? Well, I'm just going to try one. So I'm going to try over here because that's like the positive region. So I'm going to do 2, 2. So I'm checking a point. So I'm going to check 2, 2. So y is greater than 3x. So 2 is greater than 3 times 2. Oh, that's not true. 2 is not greater than 6. Nope. So I'm not going to shade this side. Nope. Instead, I'm going to shade this side over here. And this is the other way to do it, is to show your shading like that. It's up to you whether you want to shade or not. Some people even like color it in with highlighter is another thing that you can do. Okay? All right, let's do it again. This time, we're not going to do a line. This time, we're going to do... What is it? What's this going to become? A parabola, and it's a parabola written in vertex form. So let's go ahead and figure out where, if it's written at vertex form, like how do we graph this? If you think you know how, you can like make this graph on your own, pause, make the graph, be sure to dot it until you decide whether to do a solid or a dashed. If you need help walking through it, I'll do it with you now. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the vertex. So I remember that the vertex is HK, and the format is it's x minus h. So that means it must be the opposite of a plus 1. So the vertex must be at -1, -2, because it's y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. So since it's a -2, the k stays as a -2. And since it's minus h, that must be a -1. To be a minus a negative becomes a positive. All right, so I know this. I know that my a is a +1, which means it opens up. So my vertex is going to have a point at -1, -2, and then it's going to open up. So I'm going to draw what I hope will be a reasonable scale for that. I don't need a whole bunch of negative space because my parabola doesn't go any lower than -2, right? That's my minimum is going to be at -2. There's my x, there's my y. I'll do by ones again. And so I'll do a point at -1, -2. And then if we remember our pattern, we can go up 1. Since it's just a 1 there, I can go up 1 over 1, up 1 over 3, up 1 over 5. On both directions. Like that. Okay, so now I need to decide, and I also could have known that my y-intercept was going to be a -1 if I like multiplied that out and then like found the c value. But that's not the c value, right? That's the vertex. Okay, so now, is it going to be solid or dashed? It's less than. Not less than or equal to, so it'll be dashed. It's kind of hard to do a dashed line for a parabola, but just do your best. Okay, and now it says less than. So what does less than mean as far as a parabola goes? Let's test. I'm gonna have a theory that it's gonna be like the below stuff, but let's try it. So maybe I'll try like that point right there, where x is 0, and then y is -3. So that's my point that I'm checking. So x is 0, y is -3. So -3 is less than 0 plus 1 squared minus 2. -3 is less than 1 squared minus 2. So 1 minus 2, so -3 is less than -1. That is true, so that means I'm going to shade everything on the below the parabola, which in this case means like outside the parabola. And you're shading in whatever way works for you. Make sure that when you shade like to the edges of your graph, right? And if you drew your axes out too far, then just erase the axes back in until you have the amount of space that you want to shade. Okay, for your practice problem, I have given you a graph. I want you to find its rule. Okay? So I realize that this is really testing you on your remembering how to write a rule for a line, how to find the equation of a line. So remember, we're looking at, here's some hints over here. Hints. We're looking at y equals mx plus b format. You need to decide what m is. You need to decide what b is. And then you're going to need to change the inequality so that it becomes the right inequality. Okay? So maybe it's a y question mark, mx plus b. What's going to go in there? And for that slope, I've drawn you your dots here, right? So you can do a little slope triangle and figure out what's happening here, what's happening here. And that'll give you your m value, your delta y over delta x. Notice, it is going down. Good luck.